Hi YouTube, it's Mama Doe Dawn, and on this small series that I'm doing on my channel, I am talking about vaginismus. Essentially, I'm discussing what to do when sex is always painful. In the first video, I discussed with you guys what vaginismus is about, and in the second video, I talked to you guys about what may be causing that pain. Today, we're going to be talking about how to start to overcome that pain. If you didn't see the first two videos, I recommend going down to my description box and watching those first, because they're going to give you a better idea of kind of what has led up to this video right here and what I'll be discussing in this video. But if you've already watched those videos, let's go ahead and dive into today's discussion. This may be the most important video that I make in this series because it is specifically addressing fellow women who are experiencing pain during sex and the things that you can do to begin to heal from that. The last two videos kind of probably would appeal to a wider audience because they're discussing vaginismus as a whole, what causes it and what it is. But today we're talking about how to overcome it. And that is a topic that is going to speak directly to fellow women who are experiencing chronic pain during sex. I want to stress I am not a doctor, I'm not a professional, and of course going to a doctor, a therapist, a professional in general in terms of this issue is obviously recommended. But if you're not to a point where you feel you can open up about it yet and you just kind of want to listen to someone who is being open about it and is talking about their experience, then I will be happy to have you sit down with me today. You can also find my email address on my YouTube profile, and if you'd like to reach out to me privately and ask some questions and discuss it with someone who gets it, feel free to do so. I will try to respond. I am the single mom of a toddler, so sometimes it takes a little while for me to get back to my messages, but I will try to get back to you. You can also reach out to me on a platform like Instagram or Twitter, and I'll try to respond to you there as well privately if you'd like to discuss this just with someone who understands. So let's talk about some ways that you can begin to heal from chronic pain during sex. First, I want to stress, you really can't just keep having sex. You can't just work through the pain. I learned this the hard way. I had painful sex for probably a year and a half before I really learned how to heal my body and mind in a way that I could experience sex in a lot less painful of a manner. For a long time, I just tried to work through it, grit my teeth and bear it and cry. I would have tears streaming down my face. I would just try to be like, I can enjoy this pain. I can enjoy sex. This is going to be a fun experience. And it wasn't. So I think the first step you can take, as I mentioned in the previous video, is to just reflect on unhealthy mindsets that you may have towards sex and to start to try to work through those things, to come up with the opposite side of those things. So if you are afraid of the pain during sex, look up all the scientific facts that explain what actually happens when you're having sex and what actually happens with the hymen breaking and all of those things, and how it's not as traumatic and bloody as society has made it out to be. If you experienced sexual trauma in your past, reading up on books on that topic, reaching out to a friend, a family member, a therapist, all of those things can really help you begin to heal. Essentially, work really hard to figure out what subconsciously is going on in your mind that's causing your body to tighten up when it comes to sex, and then focus on turning that around, educating yourself on the truth about sex, and trying to calm those fears that you have. And then you need to take a hard step. And this was a step that was really difficult for me because it made me feel like less of a woman, like less of a sexual partner, like just less of a person who had a healthy mindset on sex, who just wanted to get out and do it. And that is to be open with people around you. Most importantly, you probably need to be open with your partner, and you need to explain to them that, hey, look, sex really hurts for me. It's extremely painful, and I'm gonna need your help to work through this. If you're really in it for me, then I'm going to need you to stick by my side as I figure this out and learn to enjoy this, because right now it's not enjoyable for me. If they're not about that, if they're not supportive of that, get rid of them. That is like the biggest red flag in the world that I could be waving over your shoulder right now. If you are not with a partner who respects your body, you are not going to be able to recover from this sexual disorder. You need to be working with someone in the bedroom who understands what you're going through, is willing to be patient, and wants to help you recover. If they're impatient or frustrated or just not willing to listen to what you're saying, then they're going to cause more damage than good. Another person that if you're comfortable with that you should open up about this to is your doctor. And I was very, very scared to talk to doctors about this condition, especially gynecologists. I had never even gone to a gynecologist for fear of the pain before I got pregnant with my daughter. But I did see 2 different gynecologists when I was pregnant with my daughter, and I can tell you right now, when I explained to them what vaginismus was, one of them hadn't heard of it, but was totally respectful and actually didn't even do a pap smear or anything like that because she wanted to make sure I was comfortable. The second one understood what it was, had heard of it before, and helped me do breathing exercises and really work through the pain that I was experiencing while she was doing it. She even had another nurse come in to kind of hold my hand, calm me down, make sure that I was just distracted and not overcome with the pain while I was having anything done in terms of her needing to go in and figure things out. If your doctor is not respectful of the condition or acts like it doesn't exist, they are not the right doctor for you. There are plenty of gynecologists out there and doctors who either will look into it and recognize that yes, it does exist, or have heard of it and will work with you through it. If your partner or your doctor does not respect the fact that you have pain during penetration, get another one. Another thing I really want to stress to you is by pushing your limits, you're not going to heal yourself. One of the biggest ways that really allowed my body to relax during sex and to be able to experience it in a more enjoyable way was by recognizing my limits and knowing when to stop and when to go, and just knowing my body in general and not pushing myself beyond a point when it was painful or uncomfortable or not pleasurable anymore. So in the last video, I talked about reasons that sex may be painful for you, and one of those reasons was guilt. And I think you would know if you feel guilty when it comes to sex, because afterwards you may just like have a slight icky feeling and you may submerge it really quickly. You might just shut that down. Even if after you masturbate, you have a small sense of guilt associated with it, you're probably feeling that guilt and it's coming into play in your sexual experiences later in terms of penetration. So I think it's important to sit down and ask yourself, why exactly are you feeling guilty? Is it that your parents made you feel like sex was not a good thing? Is it that your religion teaches you that you shouldn't be having sex before marriage, or you shouldn't be enjoying sex in general? If anything like that is the case, I also want you to sit down and forgive yourself for having sex. Because obviously you're feeling guilty about doing it in the past. And I think the biggest thing that you can do for yourself starting out is to forgive yourself and acknowledge that what you did wasn't wrong. It was totally natural. It was totally normal. It was totally healthy. And you're allowed to have sex. And this is going to sound really dumb, but a way that I helped myself get over this, and this is something that really probably therapists are better apt to help you through, but a way that I helped myself through this was I had this mantra in my head, like, sex is totally natural. I am a woman and I am allowed to enjoy sex. I am not going to go to hell for having sex. There is nothing wrong with having sex. Every animal, plant even in the world has some form of sex. It is okay for me to have it, and it is okay for me to experience it, and there is nothing wrong with doing so. And I kind of just had this mantra in my head, like, it's okay to have sex. And I would kind of repeat that to myself pretty frequently. Whenever I thought of it, whenever it popped into my head, if I was feeling guilty, I would start to like allow myself to be okay with having sex, to let go of that guilt. And over time, the guilt has disappeared, and I have really learned how to accept sex for what it is, to realize that it's natural and normal and okay, and I am allowed to experience it and enjoy it. Another thing I talked about in the last video was being afraid of sex. And again, this is something where you're going to need to reflect yourself. Why are you afraid of sex? And how can you overcome those fears? Sex education is a huge one. Are you afraid of getting pregnant? Then start researching ways to protect yourself from getting pregnant, and their effectiveness and how to properly use them. Are you afraid of getting STDs? Again, research how to avoid STDs, how to effectively have safe sex. Are you afraid of the pain? If so, unfortunately with vaginismus, then you've learned that sex actually can be painful. But you can also do research and learn that sex can be very enjoyable. Start reading up on women who are giving advice on sex, on ways to have sex that isn't painful. And a really big thing with this is clitoral stimulation, fingering, oral. Having a partner who is stimulating you without penetrating you can be a really good start. You can also do this to yourself. I recommend a vibrator. A vibrator is a really good tool for learning how to be sexually stimulated in a way that doesn't require penetration and allows you to learn to enjoy sex, to know that it can actually be a really pleasurable experience, and to begin to let go of those fears of experiencing sex and having pain in the process. And then I discussed past sexual trauma. And this is a big one because it's a very hard one to address just by yourself. And I've said read books, reach out to a friend, obviously talk to a therapist. But addressing that trauma is very hard. Owning up to that trauma is very hard. There's a lot of women who will never really fully be able to own up to it and to deal with it head on. And that's okay. You know what? You're entitled to deal with the sexual trauma that you experienced in the best way you know how. And if you are coping with it, you cope with it however works for you. But a few small things you can do to kind of help is, if possible, you can open up to your partner about the fact that you experienced something that made you uncomfortable in the past or hurt you sexually in the past. You don't have to go into detail. They're not entitled to know anything in terms of that, but it can help you, and it can help them know why you're experiencing what you're experiencing and how to avoid kind of reenacting that, I guess. Brings me to the second thing that you can do, which is avoiding triggers. A trigger for me was alcohol. The smell of alcohol on my partner's breath, for some reason, was a hyperphysical trigger that immediately made my body go from relaxed to tense. Little things like that may be a trigger for you too. Maybe being touched in a specific way, maybe being in a certain position, maybe being held in a certain way, talked to in a certain way, even a smell, a cologne, cigarette smoke, alcohol on their breath. There are so many little things that can trigger you back to something that previously made you uncomfortable. And learning what those triggers are, being honest with your partner about avoiding those, or just working to avoid them yourself, can help make sex with this new safe partner a more relaxing experience. In terms of vaginismus, there are actually physically training methods you can use. There are products online that can help you overcome vaginismus. One of these are basically these little tubes that you will insert into yourself. They start out very small and they get wider over time to kind of train your muscles how to naturally relax themselves and adjust to a larger object in your vagina. I actually never used these products, so I can't tell you a review on them. I can't tell you how to use them, but there are other people on YouTube who have, so I suggest going, checking those out, or just reading up on them online if that's something that interests you and you think would work for you. What worked for me was actually actively trying to relax my pelvic floor. A lot of people have naturally relaxed pelvic floors, but most likely if you're experiencing vaginismus, you're not naturally relaxed down there. I'm like chronically tense in that area, so I have to actually relax. And a really good way to do this, or to start learning to do this, is to relax your butt cheeks, is to act like you're going to pee. Just like relax your body. Try to breathe, try to relax the muscles in that region. Even having someone give you a massage, especially on your butt, can kind of help your body begin to relax in that area. And you can start to practice physically relaxing yourself. Physically just untensing your thighs, untensing your butt, and untensing your vagina. In terms of physically having sex with your partner, the biggest thing that made relaxing in order to have sex easier for me was to orgasm prior to sex. So to have some kind of clitoral stimulation that would lead me to an orgasm before insertion of the penis. So oral, fingering, something that will bring you to an orgasm. Vibrators are really great for this on the clitoris. And then once you orgasm, use those contractions, that natural release of tension in your pelvic area, to then allow your partner to insert into you. It's going to be the time, if you're not naturally relaxed down there, where your body is going to be the most naturally relaxed. Right when you're orgasming, when those contractions are happening, you know, shortly after you've had that experience, allow your partner into you. Also at that point in time, you're likely to be more lubricated, more stimulated, and just overall more welcoming to having them into you. So if you have a partner who's willing to work with you on that and get you to orgasm before actually being penetrated, that can be a route that you can take that can allow you to start having sex more comfortably. Go really slow and ask your partner to go really slow. Communicate when it's beginning to hurt and stop if it's beginning to hurt. Don't get frustrated with yourself. If they're going into you and it's beginning to hurt, ask them to stop. Take a few deep breaths, allow them to go a little further, stop, take a few deep breaths, work through it together. If you have a partner who truly loves you and truly cares about you, this isn't going to be a huge issue. And over time, you're going to learn, and they're going to learn what you need in order to be more comfortable, more relaxed. And honestly, for me, once I get past that initial penetration phase when my body is super tense, when I am beginning to like get into the rhythm and he's fully inside of me, the pain begins to subside. And that to me is when I can really truly start to enjoy sex. Another thing that can help you with this is be willing to use your fingers or a toy during penetration. So a vibrator while being penetrated can be like a lifesaver for a lot of women. One, it's likely to help you orgasm while being penetrated, because there are a lot of women out there who cannot orgasm through penetrative sex, and that's normal. That's something we're not really taught about. Most women can orgasm through clitoral stimulation. Not all women can orgasm through penetrative sex. We're taught that we can. Men have this egotistical idea oftentimes that that's a way to get women to orgasm and their dick isn't good enough if they can't, but if you have a guy who's mature, he's going to be okay with you using a vibrator during sex to help you stay calm, relaxed, and even orgasm during penetrative sex. Have grace with yourself and be patient. Unfortunately, recovering from vaginismus is not just an overnight recovery. It takes time, but I'm here to tell you that it can happen. There are times where sex is still painful for me. There are times where being penetrated is still a really slow process and I have to be very open and communicative with my partner, but I do absolutely have experiences now where sex is not painful at all for me. Know that you can get to that point as well, but be patient with yourself when you're going through what you're going through now in the healing process. It took me nearly 5 years to learn how to relax and actually enjoy sex. And that's because I didn't have anyone really talking me through it. I didn't have any professionals involved. I was just winging it, researching things online, trying to discover what could work for me. And it was a long and difficult process. I hope with these videos I can kind of speed up that process for you guys by telling you exactly what I did and some steps that you personally can take to make this an easier recovery. You are not alone. This is so common. It is so normal. And I don't want you to get discouraged if you're going through this. Like I mentioned before, if you just need a friend to talk to, if you need someone who gets it, if you have some questions that you're not comfortable asking in the comment section, feel free to reach out to me. Like one username that I can think of right now really easy and a good way to private message me is Instagram. I'm at Mama Doe Dawn. So you can just reach out to me on there in a direct message and I'll try to answer your questions and just help you through it, because I realize what you're going through and it can be difficult and it can be discouraging. It can be heartbreaking, but I also want you to know it's normal. So many women go through this and so many women just feel like they can't talk about it and they don't know how to start the process of getting better. I hope in some small way, if you're going through this yourself, you could take away something from this video. You could learn a small step that you can begin to take on your journey to experiencing sex, because you deserve to have pleasurable, pain-free sex. Absolutely every single woman does. And you can get to that point. It may take some time, it may take some trial and error, but over time you will learn your body, you will learn your wants and needs, you'll learn your triggers, and you will learn how to think and behave and relax in a way that will make sex a very enjoyable experience for you. If you're interested in viewing the other videos on my series or hearing about my pregnancy and birth story with vaginismus, feel free to come back in the future. I'll post a video on that. My other videos will be in the description box below. And this channel is just centered around everything my single mom life entails. So if that's also something that interests you, I would love to have you come back and view my other content. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.